we live in a very consumeristic culture, and unfortunately, this feeds right into where a lot of people are, where they want to be entertained and they need to be entertained because everywhere else in culture is entertainment, right? You know what I mean? And this is where I think the church is losing it, because the church needs to be countercultural, intentionally at times, needs to be countercultural. All right, welcome to the Church Dropout podcast. My name is Alan. I'm joined by
Lisa.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Church Dropout is a podcast. We talk about issues, topics, and teachings related to faith, life, and culture in ways that are sometimes funny, sometimes serious, but always insightful. If you have not already, please like, rate, and subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast at. So, how you doing, Lisa?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm pretty good. A little tired.
Yeah.
Yeah. Low energy. Look like it?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Why you said that?
I could just kind of tell when you're, when you're just tired.
Mm-hmm.
Just even before.
Oh, yeah?
Just earlier today. Yeah.
Yeah.
Had a long, probably mental day at work today, I'm suggesting.
Definitely had a mental day.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a mental day for a couple weeks, but yeah, show must go on, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
But, something interesting happened in the news, Christian news world a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not even a couple weeks ago, maybe a few days ago, maybe 3 or 4 days ago.
Mm-hmm.
So Mike Todd, I think it was this sermon from last Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
I don't pay attention that much to Mike Todd and his sermons and different things of that sort. But something happened to catch my attention where a person put his sermon from this past Sunday that he did on tithing or giving, I should say. And they put it next to somebody else's sermon, and it was pretty much word for word. At least a certain portion of it was pretty much word for word. The illustration that he used, call people up on stage. You could tell that.
Wow.
But it's not surprising. I mean, we did a video just on, sermon teams or sermon writing teams and stuff like that.
Ghost writers.
Yeah, ghost writers. And so it's not necessarily surprising, right, that this would happen. I don't want to talk about that incident of plagiarizing, right? Even though that's, I guess, what it would, that's what it would be considered, I guess, right? I want to talk about a little bit of a different perspective of it in terms of, Mike Todd is, and it's not just him, but just using him as an example, he's known for having these, over the top illustrations.
Yeah.
Very much so, I think, kind of in that, what I would say the entertainment culture as it relates to Sunday church or Sunday gatherings, right?
Okay.
By entertainment, I don't mean just you're trying to entertain folks, but it's really centered on, I guess, entertainment or just acts that, would, I guess, get people's attention, draw people in by getting people's attention.
Right.
And almost every week there's somebody reviewing his messages because of some extreme form of, extreme example, right?
Like his big antics or just
going
over the top.
Right. Yeah. Just being over the top. But he's one of many, you know what I mean? Like, there was, around Easter, we saw, there's a person who punted the Bible or, just these over the top, programs that people have. And again, just what I would consider to be entertainment culture within the church. And it kind of got me thinking about, in terms of entertainment culture, it doesn't last, right? More specifically, it's unsustainable.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? Like, just the whole idea that somehow people will engage, or the way that we have to reach people is through entertainment. It's just unsustainable.
Right.
And I just think about like a person like Mike Todd, or anybody who kind of falls in that camp that believes that, because I think he believes what he's doing is right. Okay. But I think about like, if a pastor for 20 years and he has to do this every Sunday for 20 years, it's just unsustainable. It doesn't surprise me that you would have to resort to, getting content from other places because it's unsustainable to be that creative and that entertaining every week.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
And the sad thing is, how you get them is how you're going to have to keep them.
Absolutely. Right. So how people enter the kingdom is how people live out the kingdom. And so if people are expecting you to do what you've been doing, they're going to expect you to do that every week.
Right.
You know what I mean? So there's an enormous amount of pressure that he put on himself that is not anybody else. This is the way he's chosen to, pastor or lead that community. And it's just unsustainable. It's just unsustainable. And, obviously there's all types of problems as it relates to entertainment culture within the church. But it just got me thinking about how it's unsustainable. And obviously it's a dangerous form of engaging, people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, honestly, I think for many, this is what leads a lot of pastors to burnout. Having to perform or feel like they have to give extra in order for people to grab hold of biblical truth.
Yeah.
And in fact, like, I don't know, like I was kind of thinking about, this is not a prophecy or something like that, but again, could he do this for the next 20 years? I don't think so. I honestly believe that in, I don't know, next maybe 3-4 years, he'll probably leave the pastorate and start doing something in more of online influencing. Find another way to do what he's doing without the pressure of pastoring. Something that's personality driven.
Yeah.
But I think that's outside the church because this is unsustainable. And it doesn't surprise me that it would resort to that he or anybody else who's in that particular realm will resort to having to get content from other places. You know what I mean?
That's crazy.
It is. And it's sad. You know what I mean? And so, in saying that, this is unsustainable, there's just a few things that I just wanted to mention that I was kind of thinking about in relation to, entertainment culture in general. You got something?
No, you're fine.
Entertainment culture attracts, but it doesn't sustain, right? So this is a part of this whole seeker sensitive, idea of getting people to trying to make a crowd a convert. You know what I mean? Like, getting people in the doors, getting people to respond to the scriptures by, appealing to their senses, appealing to their emotions or whatnot. And, this real seeker sensitive idea, and it draws people, but it doesn't sustain. And I think in the church today, there seems to just be an over reliance on these trends, these popular kind of antics, these ways to get people involved, that really is just leading not only pastors to burn out, but people to burn out.
Yeah.
And this is a large reason why people are leaving. I remember being a part of, certain churches feeling like, I've never been a part of a church like that. That was that over the top. But, there are churches that, are very wide in terms of their approach, but not very deep in terms of the teaching.
Yes.
And by deep, I just mean substantive, right? I don't mean just deep in terms of
big words.
Right. Right. You know what I mean?
Theologians.
Right. We going through the 5 solas this week and all types of stuff like that. Like, I'm not talking about.
I don't even know what that is.
Right.
Okay.
But yeah. Right. Most people are.
Right.
But But I'm not talking about deep like that.
Yeah.
I'm talking about deep like, there's nothing substantive,
Right.
right? Like
Right.
there's nothing there that's making people stick to the Christian faith,
Right.
right? And have a
Right.
hold on Jesus. So it's very wide,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also very shallow. It's not deep,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people who are just left in a place where they're just like, is this it? Right? Or don't know what to do. They're
Yeah.
there, but they get burnt out on the experience and they're like, man, do I even really know Jesus? And to be honest, these are a lot of people who end up walking away from, the faith.
Yeah.
Mainly because they figured they didn't really have a faith to begin with.
Right.
But that they really don't know.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's dangerous. It's a fad or a trend that I think is really causing people to crash.
Yeah.
In their faith. And I think it's bigger than what I think it's a bigger problem than just, is he teaching right doctrine? Or I think the culture is toxic and the culture needs to change. And I think it's causing people to crash. Not only is it dangerous in terms of, the over reliance on trends, it's also dangerous because it builds a dependence on performance, right? Where people are dependent on this performance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So again, they're expecting him to come every week and to
put on a show.
Put on a show.
Dance a jig.
Exactly. Jump. Wow, Lisa.
Sorry.
Wow. Lord. Wow.
I don't mean the way that is used. I just mean get up there and perform for me.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? I want to walk in here and I want to see you keep me entertained.
No.
That's what I meant by it.
No. I know exactly what you meant. Just caught me off guard. But yeah, I mean, the guy, this guy, and again, I don't want to harp on him too much. I mean, again, trampolines in the middle of service or changing, let me just use another church, changing, the whole church to look like a football field and a stadium. And it's just, you're making people addicted to a performance. Right. You know what I mean? You're building a dependency on that.
Yeah. I guarantee you if he came next Sunday and it was just a regular pew, and he just came and gave a message, just normal, he probably would have people walk out like,
yeah.
What's going on here?
You
know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's expected now.
Yeah.
And, I think he's expecting it. You know what I mean? And this is where, again, people make decisions, people make choices and stuff like that. And this is where, to be honest, I kind of feel bad for him, in some senses, like as a young preacher, he probably doesn't have a whole lot of people who are speaking into his life because of the status and where he's at. It seems like he's built up somewhat of a resistance to the commentary that's out there.
Yeah.
You're thinking that, these are just haters or people just talking about him. And but I don't know. I just think he's tangled up in this and doesn't know how to get out of it.
And it's almost got him caught in like a numbers thing. You know what I mean? Like, I need to sustain this to keep the numbers. If I start seeing the numbers drop, I guarantee you the entertainment and all that will just shoot up even more, Yeah,
it could be a numbers thing, or it could just be I've built up this expectation and now I need to meet this expectation. You know what I mean? And I just don't know how to get from underneath it because now it's a part of who I am identity wise. And it would be impossible to change. That's why I feel like at some point he's gonna, he's not gonna be able to move. The larger it gets, he's not gonna be able to move from underneath this. It's he's either gonna burn out and he's gonna have a difficult experience, unfortunately, or he's gonna walk away from it because it's just not sustainable. You know what I mean?
And honestly, I would think probably too if. I'm just talking. I'm sorry. I would.
No, it's good.
I'm laughing at myself. Sorry. It's a real inside joke. As people grow in the faith, I would think they would want something more substance. You know what I mean? So if I'm there, and I'm really, I'm really wanting more of a
Mm-hmm.
breakdown and I'm not now I'm not a new babe in Christ, as they say, anymore.
Yeah.
Now I want some meat now. I'm not on baby food anymore. I kind of want some meat.
Yeah.
But I feel like, I'm not getting that meat.
Absolutely.
You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Because I feel like in order to be entertainment driven, and you're not really getting that deep. And to
Yeah.
get deep, you got to get to the meat. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would think once people start growing, and wanting to go to the next level, and they would want more substance.
Yeah.
You know.
Unfortunately, in environments like that,
Mm-hmm.
you have what's called stunted growth. And to be honest, a lot of people may not even grow past that.
Mm-hmm. And that's good.
You're kind of making an assumption. You're making a logical assumption, like that's the way it should be, right?
Mm-hmm.
The closer we get, or the more we engage our faith,
Mm-hmm.
the more you desire
Mm-hmm.
to know,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not just know intellectually, that's also to know experientially, as Paul said, right? To know Christ experientially, right?
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, if you're not being pushed in that direction,
Right.
and it's, I don't know, this is another topic, but if things are kind of being, how do I say this without being, things like being dumbed down to where,
Watered
again,
down.
I know, just dumbed down.
Dumbed down?
Like, it's
Okay.
just a very simple.
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole thing when it comes to entertainment culture in church is that it kind of just is. It just, to me, it's just not substantive, and it just kind of dumbs Christianity down to the point where what we need is a simple way to understand complex issues. And if we give people the complex issues, they won't hang on. They won't hold on, right? But anyway, I'd say, I just, unfortunately, there's a lot of people who are there who have stunted growth who probably will never move out of that. You know what I mean? The cold part is that this, we live in a very consumeristic culture, and unfortunately, this feeds right into where a lot of people are, where they want to be entertained, and they need to be entertained because everywhere else in culture is entertainment, right? You know what I mean? And this is where I think the church is losing it, because the church needs to be countercultural, intentionally at times, needs to be countercultural, right? Meaning that, we live in a very fast-paced culture. I think the church needs to intentionally slow things down, in order to help people to understand what life is,
Right.
what, you know what I mean?
Right.
And, and what abiding really looks like.
Yeah.
And so because the culture is trying to appease people or gather people according to what they would call contextualization, when it's really just capitulation to culture, this is what ends up happening. You know what I mean? Where people just kind of dumb down the word, dumb down the church, make it entertainment driven, and then people expect to be entertained when they enter into the church. And that's just asking for burnout.
Yeah.
It's just feeding into a consumeristic, mindset. And I think we said this already. This is the last thing I'll say on this, is that, unfortunately, this leads to, a very shallow Christianity, one that's not deeply rooted
Right.
in knowing Jesus.
Right.
It's not deeply rooted in a tested faith.
Yeah.
It's rooted in, an experience.
Yeah.
Right. And unfortunately, if people are holding on to Christ based on experiences, they're just really one experience from letting go. Right? It's just the reality, whatever you enter in, I say this all the time, is like, how you enter the kingdom is how you live it out. So if you come into the kingdom based on experience, you're going to live out your faith that way, right? You're going to look for the experiences to sustain you.
Yeah.
You're going to, feed off of those experiences. And once those experiences stop, or they're not there, then you don't have deep enough roots to fight through that.
Yeah.
And to move past that. And that's kind of where the problem is with this,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And then this is just an overarching problem to me with Sunday morning. Just how much emphasis we place on Sunday morning,
Right.
and what type of pressure or importance we put on Sunday morning as the, again, pinnacle of the Christian life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And and so anyway, it kind of reminds me of John 6, I believe, where Jesus, after he feeds the 5,000, the people follow him across the river to the other side, and he does the miracle of feeding them with the fish and the bread, and they follow him to the other side, find boats. I mean, they go crazy just to find him. And when they show up there and they find him there, he said, "Listen, you're not following me because I've worked a miracle and that's attesting to who I am. You're following me because your stomachs were filled." Just think about that. Like, you're following me because your stomachs were made full, right? You didn't even really realize the miracle. You're looking at what the miracle has done for you and to you, and you're following me because you've experienced this great miracle, and you have not experienced me. And what's interesting about that is that, he fed them bread, and, this ties back to the bread of life and how man is not supposed to live by bread alone, but by the word of, by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God. And that is true substance. That's true bread. But I say that to say, relating that back to what we're talking about is that it's unsustainable. It's manna in the wilderness. It's not something that's meant to sustain the Christian life.
Yeah.
This entertainment, this idea of getting people to experience, or getting people to experience God through these experiences, and it's unsustainable.
Yeah.
It's unsustainable for the people who are hearing it, and it's unsustainable for the people who are doing it.
Yeah.
Eventually, it's going to lead to a crash, or it's going to lead to a crossroads of where people have to really understand what faith truly is.
Yes.
And so my prayer is not only for the people that are caught up in that, but it's also for those leaders who are caught up in that.
Yeah.
Because, again, it's not sustainable for a pastor to have to get to a place where they're not even developing their own content because they have to keep this up. They've started this way. They have to keep this up.
Yeah.
Man, that's headed for a very bad place. You know what I mean? And so anyway, very interesting.
Yeah.
Any other comments, last words?
No, that was good. Good conversation.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So we'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you guys for tuning into the Church Dropout podcast. As always, leave a comment below. Keep the conversation moving forward. Please like, rate, and subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast at. And we out.
Yeah.
Good night.